The sirens of the USS Valiant wailed through the corridors, a harrowing prelude to an unanticipated nightmare. Captain James Walker, with a heart hammering against his chest like a drum of war, sprinted to the command deck. Every step echoed the urgency. Their remote colony, a speck in the vast universe, was under attack. As the doors hissed open, revealing the pulsating heart of the ship, Walker's eyes locked onto the main screen, displaying a chaos of blaring alarms and swirling reds. The weight of 1,000 lives pressed down on him, and in that moment, he knew the tranquility of the galaxy hinged on his next command. Earth was not just a planet, but a sprawling empire of humanity's ingenuity and resolve. The command center of the USS Valiant, stationed at the edge of the known universe, buzzed with activity under the vast, starlit canvas of space. Here, amid panels aglow with holographic displays and the rhythmic hum of the ship's core, stood Captain Walker, a man whose very presence seemed to command the stars. Walker, at 38, bore the classic features of a seasoned leader, sharp eyes set under a furrowed brow, a jaw clenched in determination, and a stature that towered with quiet authority. His black uniform, adorned with the golden insignia of Earth's fleet, spoke of numerous battles fought and won. Yet, the soft glow of the command deck reflected subtly in his eyes, revealing a well of deep compassion and relentless drive. These were the traits that made him not only a guardian of Earth's colonies but also a beacon of hope in the darkness of space. The Valiant was more than a ship. It was a testament to human will, equipped with the latest quantum drives, energy shields, and an arsenal capable of leveling asteroids. Its sleek, metallic corridors, lined with views of the cosmos, thrummed with the footsteps of those dedicated to peace, or war, should the universe demand it. As Walker took his place at the command module, his crew snapped to attention, their faces a mixture of resolve and anxiety. The holographic screens painted a dire picture, distant outposts signaling distress, their beacons like dying stars in the vastness of the galaxy. Each alert was a cry for help that Walker felt resonate in his bones. "Report." His voice, clear and commanding, cut through the murmurs of the deck. Lieutenant Ambassador, a young officer whose brilliance in navigation had quickly risen her through the ranks, stepped forward. Her hands danced over the luminescent controls, bringing up a tactical display of the besieged colony. "Sir, the colony on Theta 9 is under heavy attack. Unknown assailants, they came out of the warp shadows and they're hitting hard." Walker's gaze hardened as he studied the unfolding chaos. The Theta 9 colony, a remote but vital hub for Earth's deep space telemetry, was now a battlefield. His mind raced, strategizing, calculating. Every second delayed was a life potentially lost. "Prepare to jump to Theta 9, Walker commanded, his voice a calm amidst the storm. "Red alert. Battle stations. This is not a drill. We protect our own." As the crew scrambled, the ship's engines groaned to life. A beast awakened. The stars outside seemed to stretch into lines as the Valiant prepared to rip through the fabric of space itself. And there, in the silent anticipation of the jump, Captain Walker stood resolute, a sentinel between humanity and the darkness threatening to engulf them. He knew the cost of command, the weight of every decision. Yet, as the stars blurred into hyperspeed, his resolve only strengthened. The fate of Theta 9 hung in the balance, and with it, the peace of the entire galaxy. For James Walker, retreat was not an option. The battle for humanity's future was just beginning. The tranquility of the void was shattered by the sudden, ferocious onslaught of Warlord Staler's fleet. Like a swarm of meteors hurtling towards an unsuspecting planet, the Zervatic ships burst from the warp shadows, their hulls gleaming menacingly under the harsh light of Theta 9's twin suns. Their weapons charged, emitting a sinister glow that painted the void with impending doom. The colony, with its domed habitats and sprawling solar arrays, stood vulnerably under the shadow of these titanic destroyers. Captain Walker watched the holographic displays flicker with the images of devastation, structures collapsing, shields flickering out one by one, and the desperate signals of the colony's defenders fading into static. His jaw tightened. These were not just strategic assets, they were lives, families, scientists, pioneers. His grip whitened on the command console, the weight of command heavier than ever. Engage stealth mode, shield up, and approach from the magnetic pole of their lead ship, Walker instructed crisply, his mind racing through tactics and countermeasures. The crew's response was immediate, the hum of the ship changing in pitch as the stealth technology cloaked them from enemy sensors. The USS Valiant slipped silently through space, like a ghost ship navigating the currents of the cosmos. As they neared the chaotic battlefield, the stark reality of the assault became palpable. The colony's main reactor had been hit, its usual vibrant blue glow now a sputtering ember. Debris floated aimlessly, a testament to the ferocity of the attack. The Zervatic fleet continued to bombard the colony, oblivious to the silent predator drawing close. Lieutenant Ambassador's voice broke the tense silence. "We're in position, Captain. Just off their starboard sensor array. On my mark, disengage stealth and target their weapons systems. All batteries, prepare to fire," Walker commanded, his voice steady but his heart thundering against his ribs. He knew the element of surprise was their greatest weapon. The seconds ticked by like hours as the USS Valiant's crew held their breath, waiting for the order that would plunge them into the fray. Then, with a nod from Walker, Ambassador hit the switch. Now, the Valiant shimmered into visibility, its guns blazing with righteous fury. A volley of plasma torpedoes streaked across space, striking the Zorvatic ships with precision. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers, ripping through the enemy's armaments. The surprise was total, the impact devastating. For a moment, the tide seemed to turn. But Warlord Staler was not a foe to be underestimated. From the command deck of his dreadnought, he watched the ambush with a snarl of rage. His eyes, cold and calculating, quickly adapted to the new threat. Reroute power to forward shields. Target that human ship. "I want them obliterated," Staler barked out orders, his voice a growl of malice. His ship responded, its massive guns realigning to return fire. The USS Valiant rocked as a barrage of enemy fire slammed into their shields. Alarms blared, and the ship shuddered under the impact. Walker braced himself against the console, his resolve unbroken. "Evasive maneuvers. Keep them off balance and target their engines," he ordered, his mind already moving to the next phase of the battle. The Valiant danced through the void, weaving a deadly path through enemy fire. Amidst the chaos, the battle became a duel of wits and wills, Staler's brute force against Walker's cunning agility. Each maneuver, each strike, held the potential to shift the balance of power. Walker knew he couldn't outgun the Zorvatic fleet, but he could outsmart them. As the battle raged, the fate of Theta 9 and its people hung precariously in the balance. Captain James Walker, with every fiber of his being committed to their defense, fought not just for victory but for the very soul of humanity's place in the stars. The USS Valiant, now visible against the backdrop of Theta 9's besieged colony, surged forward into the fray. Its silhouette cut a formidable figure as it navigated through the debris of destroyed Zervatic fighters, remnants of their initial onslaught still smoldering in the cold void of space. Captain James Walker stood firm at the helm, his eyes scanning the myriad of displays, each one feeding live data into the nerve center of the ship. As the battle unfolded, the Valiant's cannons roared to life, hurling bursts of ionized plasma towards the enemy. The ship shuddered with each release, a mechanical beast in the throes of war. Below, the colony's surface was scarred with the wounds of battle, its once gleaming structures now tarnished with the ash of destruction. "Status on the colony's shield generator?" Walker's voice cut through the cacophony of alerts and commands that filled the air. Lieutenant Ambassador, her fingers flying over the holographic interface, responded without turning, "Shields at 23% and falling, sir. We need to secure the generator, or the colony won't hold." Walker nodded, his mind racing with strategies. Divert auxiliary power to the colony's defenses. Prepare a ground team for immediate deployment. We have to secure that generator at all costs. The crew members responded with rehearsed precision, their training taking over in the face of looming catastrophe. Meanwhile, the Valiant continued its relentless assault, drawing enemy fire away from the vulnerable colony. Outside the protective bulkheads of the Valiant, space was a canvas of chaos and violence. Zervatic ships, agile and ruthless, returned fire with ferocious intensity. Their leader, Warlord Staler, watched from his command ship, his features twisted in fury as he observed the human ship's audacious tactics. "Concentrate fire on their starboard wing. Disable that ship." Staler's orders boomed through his ship, each word punctuated with the promise of destruction. Back on the Valiant, the situation was growing desperate. A direct hit rocked the vessel, a bright lance of energy piercing the starboard shields and searing the hull. Alarms blared, and the smell of ozone filled the command deck. Walker steadied himself against the wave of disorientation, his resolve hardening. "Damage report," he called out, his voice a calm anchor in the storm. "Shields down to 40%, hull integrity at 75%. We've got fires on deck 7 through 9, reported a crewman, his voice tense but controlled. Walker turned to his tactical officer, "Prepare to execute a Michelson maneuver. Take us above their fleet, confuse their targeting systems." As the Valiant maneuvered into position, high above the enemy fleet, Its shadow cast a temporary pall over the beleaguered colony below. The ground team, led by Commander Alina, one of Walker's most trusted officers, prepared for deployment. Their mission was clear: secure the shield generator and ensure the colony's survival until reinforcements could arrive. With a nod from Walker, Alina and her team were dispatched in a shuttle, darting towards the colony like a falling star eager to reach its destined land. As they descended, the battle between the Valiant and the Zervatic fleet reached a fever pitch, the sky lit with the fire of a dozen suns clashing in celestial fury. On the colony's surface, Alina's team encountered little resistance as most of the Zervatic forces were engaged with the Valiant. They moved quickly, navigating through the rubble-strewn streets, their path illuminated by the intermittent explosions above. Reaching the generator was only the beginning. The real challenge lay in defending it long enough for repairs to be made. As they set up defenses, the ground beneath them trembled with the impact of the ongoing space battle. Above, Walker continued to orchestrate a dance of destruction, each move calculated to keep Staler's forces disoriented and at bay. The stakes were clear, the mission critical: hold the line, protect the colony, and preserve humanity's foothold in the stars. The battle for Theta 9 was not just a fight for survival, but a testament to the resilience and courage of those willing to stand against the darkness. The space above Theta 9 had become an inferno of swirling energies and explosive decompressions, as the USS Valiant and the Zervatic fleet exchanged devastating volleys. Amidst this chaos, Captain James Walker's visage was a mask of iron resolve. The bridge of the Valiant, bathed in the intermittent glow of console lights and the external flashes of close-range artillery fire, bore the atmosphere of a war chamber on the eve of a decisive battle. In the heart of this storm stood Walker, orchestrating maneuvers and counterattacks with the precision of a seasoned maestro. His crew, a mosaic of determination and fear, operated the ship's weapons and defenses under his unwavering command. Maintain barrage patterns. Focus on their propulsion systems, Walker ordered, his voice a steady force against the backdrop of war. On the Zervatic flagship, Warlord Staler seethed with frustration. The humans' tactics were unorthodox, their resilience unexpected. From his command platform, he watched as his once formidable advantage ebbed under the relentless cunning of the Valiant's captain. Bring us to their flank. All power to forward shields and prepare the ion disruptors. Staler commanded, his voice booming over the clamor of his own war room. Back on the Valiant, Lieutenant Ambassador relayed the tactical data with urgent clarity. Enemy flagship altering course, increasing power output to weapon systems, she reported, her fingers dancing over her console, redirecting defensive power accordingly. The duel between the two ships became a spectacle of strategic genius, each commander anticipating and countering the other's moves. It was not just a battle of firepower but of wits, where every decision could tip the scales in a brutal contest of survival. Amid this high-stakes chess game, the Valiant maneuvered daringly close to the enemy flagship. The proximity was suffocating, the risk of catastrophic collision as palpable as the barrage of energy weapons that crisscrossed the narrow expanse between the two titans. Now, execute evasive Sigma, Walker commanded. With that, the Valiant performed a sudden, stomach-churning dive, spiraling downwards as the Zervatic flagship unleashed a fury of ion disruptors where the Valiant had been merely a heartbeat before. The move was audacious, drawing a thin line between tactical brilliance and outright suicide. As the Valiant ducked under the Zervatic ship's belly, it exposed a brief vulnerability in their armor. Target that section. Full payload, now, Walker barked, pointing at the visual weak spot magnified on the main screen. The ship obeyed, its cannons releasing a focused torrent of high-energy plasma directly into the enemy's underbelly. The impact was spectacular, a brilliant flash of destructive energy that sent shockwaves through both ships. The Zervatic flagship reeled from the hit, its shields flickering dangerously. On the surface of Theta 9, Commander Alina and her team felt the ground shake as distant echoes of the battle raged above. They fought desperately to stabilize the colony's shield generator, aware that their lives depended not just on their technical skills but on the battle unfolding in the stars above them. As debris from damaged ships began to pepper the atmosphere, falling like fiery meteors toward the colony below, the intensity of the conflict reached a fever pitch. Walker, his eyes fixed on the view screen, knew this moment could define the future of Theta 9 and perhaps of humanity itself. Warlord Staler, now visibly shaken by the direct hit, growled orders to rally his fleet. The battle was far from over, and his eyes burned with a vengeful fire. The clash of these two titans, human and alien, under the gaze of distant stars, was a testament to the ferocity and the desperation of interstellar war. As the chapter closed, the fate of the Valiant, her crew, and the colony hung in a precarious balance, their outcomes intertwined within the chaotic dance of war. As the din of battle subsided, an eerie silence fell over Theta 9. The USS Valiant, scarred and battered but unbowed, hovered like a guardian angel over the colony, its presence a stark contrast against the backdrop of devastation below. Captain James Walker, his face a canvas of exhaustion and relief, surveyed the scene from the bridge. The victory was theirs, but at what cost? The surface of Theta 9 bore the scars of the conflict, a landscape pockmarked with craters and the smoldering remains of Zervatic ships that had plummeted from the sky. Despite the damage, the colony's central hub, a sprawling complex of research facilities and residential quarters, stood resilient, shielded from total destruction by the Valiant's daring efforts. Report, Walker's voice echoed softly in the now quiet bridge. Lieutenant Ambassador, her uniform stained with the sweat of relentless duty, replied, Sir, the enemy fleet is retreating. Our sensors show no further hostile activity. Damage to the colony is severe but contained. The shield generator is stable, thanks to Commander Alina and her team. Walker nodded solemnly, his eyes lingering on the holographic images of the colony. Prepare teams for search and rescue. Medical and engineering crews are to be deployed immediately. We need to ensure everyone's safety and start repairs as soon as possible. As the recovery operations began, Walker took a moment to step away from the command center, walking to the observation deck. There, he looked out over the colony, taking in the full extent of the chaos wrought by war. The sight of broken buildings and upturned earth was painful, but the flickering lights of rescue vehicles and the distant figures of medical teams moving among the debris brought a sense of hope. Below, Commander Alina coordinated the recovery efforts with precision and empathy. Her team, mixed with colony personnel, worked tirelessly, extracting survivors from collapsed structures, administering first aid, and restoring essential services. Each survivor found, each life saved, knit the fabric of the community back together, thread by fragile thread. The Valiant itself had not escaped unscathed. Crew members tended to injuries and patched up the ship's systems, their faces marked by fatigue but also by a fierce pride. They had stood against a formidable enemy and protected not just a piece of strategic territory, but lives and dreams. As the suns of Theta 9 set, casting long shadows over the colony, Walker met with his senior officers to assess the situation. We've won a hard battle today, he began, his voice resonant in the gathering dusk. But this war is far from over. We must remain vigilant, rebuild and prepare. We must learn from this, grow stronger. Back on Earth, news of the battle and the heroics of the USS Valiant spread quickly. Humanity, spread across stars and systems, felt a renewed sense of unity and strength. The battle for Theta 9 was not just a defense of a distant colony, it was a testament to human resilience and courage. In the quiet solitude of his quarters, Walker allowed himself a moment of reflection. The cost of command weighed heavily on him, each decision made, each life impacted. He thought of the faces of his crew, the settlers of Theta 9, and the families waiting back home. The burden was immense, but so was the honor. As the stars twinkled above, a sense of solemn responsibility settled over him. The galaxy was vast, filled with wonders and dangers alike. And he, along with his crew, would face them all, as protectors, as warriors, as humans. The aftermath of the battle left the air on Theta 9 heavy with a mixture of relief and lingering tension. Captain James Walker, a silhouette against the panoramic view screens of the USS Valiant's bridge, watched as the first rays of dawn cast light over the scarred landscape of the colony below. His crew, though weary, operated with a quiet efficiency, patching up the ship's wounded systems and preparing for the next inevitable challenge. The bridge door hissed open, and Commander Alina stepped through, her face marked by fatigue but underscored by a firm resolve. She approached Walker, her boots echoing softly on the metal floor. Captain, the colony's defensive perimeter is fully operational again, she reported, handing him a digital tablet displaying the status updates. Repairs are ongoing, but we've restored power and communications across most sectors. Walker nodded, taking in the details. Excellent work, Commander. How are the people? Shaken, but there's a strong sense of community. They're pulling together, helping each other rebuild. It's inspiring, sir. Walker smiled faintly, a rare break in his usually stoic demeanor. That's good to hear. It's their home, after all. We're just here to ensure they can keep it. As the day progressed, Walker convened a meeting with his senior staff and representatives from the colony. Together, they strategized the reinforcement of planetary defenses and discussed the integration of advanced early warning systems. The threat of another attack loomed large in everyone's mind, and preparedness was the order of the day. Meanwhile, on Earth and across human-occupied space, the news of the Valiant's defense of Theta 9 had spread rapidly. In the halls of the United Earth government, leaders and policymakers debated the next steps. The attack had exposed vulnerabilities that some argued were too great to overlook. In a high-security conference room, diplomats, military leaders, and scientists convened under the leadership of the Earth's Defense Secretary. The mood was tense, the stakes high. "We've seen a marked increase in hostile activities along the border colonies," the Defense Secretary began, her eyes scanning the room. Theta 9 was a wake-up call. "We need a unified strategy, not just for defense but for engagement with other galactic entities." Proposals were laid out, from the construction of new fleet outposts to the establishment of diplomatic channels with other spacefaring races. The goal was clear: ensure the security of human space and foster alliances that could prevent future conflicts. Back on the Valiant, Walker remained in close communication with Earth's command, his experience and insight invaluable to the discussions unfolding light years away. His proposal for a rapid response fleet was met with particular interest, promising a swift military presence at any sign of threat. As night fell over Theta 9, the colony lit up with activity. Rebuilding efforts were in full swing, with both settlers and crew from the Valiant working side by side. In the local gathering hall, a small ceremony took place, honoring those who had fallen and celebrating the spirit of resilience that defined the survivors. Walker attended, standing quietly at the back as speeches were made. The gratitude of the people, their applause and tearful thank yous, was a bittersweet reminder of the costs and rewards of his duty. In the solitude of space, as the Valiant patrolled the quiet sectors surrounding Theta 9, Walker stood once more before the view screens. Stars, countless and indifferent, twinkled back at him. Peace was a precarious, hard-won thing, he knew. But as long as there was a threat to that peace, he and his crew would stand ready, guardians of a galaxy teeming with life, conflict, and the endless pursuit of harmony.